Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. We've got this year's Hult Prize winners. This is kind of a tradition with me. We've had them on the show every year now for the last several years. It's just the greatest thing going in social entrepreneurship. Really cool. So we've got the whole team just about for Rice Inc., Lincoln Lee, the CEO, Kisum Chan, the CMO, and Vanny Quay, the CFO. So stick around. You don't want to miss this episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Lincoln, Kisum, Vanny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and excited to learn more about this. But let's start by putting this in some context, right? Vanny, maybe you would take just a minute and tell everyone what the Hult Prize is and what you get for winning.
So the Hult Prize is one of the largest social entrepreneurship program catered for university students. Every year, the Hult Prize will host different rounds of competitions on campus, regionals, and at the UN finals. So for us this year, there are around, I think, 100,000 participants all over the world. And luckily enough, and we are really humbled to receive the grand prize of the Hult Prize this year. And with that comes a grand prize of $1 million in capital investment for our startup. So yeah,
wow.
We're really happy and honored to receive the award.
Boy, congratulations. To get $1 million to get this off the ground is so exciting, and so just dying to hear more about this. Lincoln, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Rice Inc. is and does?
Okay, so Rice Inc. is a sustainable, standardized supply chain solution that offers drying and storage services for smallholder farmers to increase their income and reduce rice losses in the entire supply chain.
That's great. Kisum, how does the technology work? How are you going to change the lives of farmers at scale here?
So right now, what we're doing is we're taking existing agricultural technologies. For us right now, it's mechanized rice dryers that we're going to be placing in the villages of Myanmar, so that farmers in those villages can use it and then get what Lincoln just mentioned, which is increased revenue, increased yield, and decreased loss as well. And the technology that we're using is called the biomass dryer. It's also known as a flatbed dryer as well.
Lincoln, how did you come across this technology?
So actually, it wasn't the first technology that we came across. Throughout our research, we found out that there were existing dryers. And when we went on the ground in Myanmar, we actually went with another dryer, a solar-powered one. But when we were there, we discovered that actually the preferred choice for the farmers was this biomass flatbed dryer. And they recommended it to us, the farmers themselves, because they've heard about it. And so we went back and did our research, and it was produced from Vietnam, but imported into our target region, Myanmar. And that's how we slowly discovered more about it. Yeah.
So how does it work? Tell us about the technology. What do people do with a rice dryer, and how does it operate?
Okay, so the technology is made up of 3 parts. The first part is a furnace where it generates heat by burning rice husks. So basically the skin of rice, that's a natural byproduct of the later stage of the supply chain, milling. Then the heat is then blown into the second part through a fan. So the fan blows the heat into the third part, which is a chamber where the grains are being kept. And the hot air will circulate and dry the grains in that chamber.
Excellent. Vanny, help us understand why farmers don't have access to this today. Why do you need to help them get access to this equipment and technology?
All right. So one of the dryer costs up to 6,000 USD. And for an average farmer, it will take up to 30 years of saving for them to afford one dryer. So as being sold as a product, farmers can't actually afford to buy it. So what we thought about is like buying them as a business and then providing this service to providing this product to the farmers as a service so that they can benefit from using the dryers, and also bridging the gap between the accessibility between the technology and also the farmers.
Kisum, how will that change the farmers' lives? What does drying the rice do to the price of rice?
So it's right now, some farmers actually do dry the rice, but they dry it with using very traditional agricultural techniques. So we're talking about literally laying it on the ground to let it sun dry. So I'm talking about wet rice over here. But by using these dryers, they'd be able to reduce their drying times from 5 whole days to just 5 hours using the machine. On top of that, the rice that's produced is of higher quality. So that basically increases the profit that they could make by around 2 times the amount that they could potentially make. And on top of that, we're also reducing the loss of rice that actually occurs from improper drying practices, because a lot of farmers have complained that they can't have control of the weather, of like birds, of pests that come and just eat or like ruin the wet rice that's laid out under the sun. By using our machine and technology, that basically eliminates this whole problem.
So Lincoln, how does this help to feed the world, right? Help us connect the impact of these dryers on making sure everyone in the world has enough food to eat?
Well, half the world depends on rice. And actually what happens is that according to current projections, we probably will run out of food, or we won't have enough to feed our population. And half the world that eats the rice will probably be the first ones affected, because they normally come from developing nations. But actually we do grow enough rice. We're just wasting a lot of it. We waste up to 30% of rice. And a large chunk of that 30%, about 2/3 of it, can be traced to improper drying practices. So by eliminating improper drying practices, you would basically be reducing a lot of waste. And without having to plant anything extra, we would be able to successfully feed the growing population. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, which one of you looked most closely? Who's the expert on the solar drying technology that you rejected?
I guess that was like a lot. It was a team decision to reject it. And we really wanted to make sure, because we spent, I would say around 5 months really gunning for this solar drying technology that we were going to implement. But after going onto the ground in Myanmar, talking to the farmers, but it really wasn't suited for them. And I guess that is a true testament to really knowing your customer and then understanding their problems, which we couldn't do because we weren't in Myanmar originally. And by really talking to them and understanding the individual differences between the old dryer that we were going to use and the new dryer, stuff like capacity, quality of drying and all of that, it was like a team decision, and it just made sense.
So how did the solar dryer work, and why did the farmers not like it?
I guess one of the biggest problems was that the farmers were actually producing too much rice for the solar dryer. The solar dryer, it was faster than sun drying, but still slower than what we're currently using. It was, the capacity of a solar dryer is maximum of 1 ton. The average farmer produces 10 tons, which is harvested all in 1 day. So we'd need 10 solar dryers, which would take so much space that would be too unrealistic. And I guess another difference would be that the solar dryer would take around 24 hours instead of the 5 hours that the current dryer that we're using. Yeah.
And I guess it's really the same carbon impact if you're just burning waste rice, right? The husks, right? Because that waste is going to end up in the atmosphere anyway. So whether you burn it or not, there's no carbon impact. Interesting. Well, this is a fascinating thing. You know, solar is so sexy. I love everything solar. And I think a lot of people get excited about solar. You three did. And I imagine Julia did for months. But it's interesting that you were able to make that shift. Do you think making that shift had an impact on the prize, Vanny?
On the price of what?
On the
prize, winning the Hult Prize.
That was definitely one of the challenges that we have faced because up to the regionals round, we have always been pitching the solar bubble as our dryer. And after that, we switched to a slightly more mechanized. And a lot of people are still caught on to our original solar bubble idea because it sounded like really sexy. But also, we've also looked into other methods to improve our current dryer. Like we've actually talked to experts to install like solar panels and like maybe look into wind energy or other alternative sources, but we just realized that installing solar panels to power our dryer is not exactly the most economical and most efficient way to do because it will take up close to like 100 solar panels to power it. So I feel like coming from like a business feasibility side, it's more like judging between business feasibility and like how like sexy an idea sounds like, and we chose to make it more feasible.
And just to add on to that, I guess like really put, so from a business standpoint, that made sense. But understanding like the carbon footprint and like the relative carbon footprint of the two dryers, we found out even though we were burning the rice husks and using using a generator to channel that air, it wasn't generating that much more of a carbon footprint compared to one another. Because of the amount of rice that's wasted is so staggeringly huge that if we had saved that, then the carbon and the energy and the water, all the resources that were put into growing that rice, that is also worth immense value. And I think the Hult Prize saw that as well, and also the judging committee.
Yeah. Well, Lincoln, what are you most proud of having accomplished so far?
Well, actually, the thing that we're most proud of, I think, as a team, of accomplishing so far is probably our pilot project. Because what happened was, on the day we won the Hult Prize was also the same day that our dryer was properly installed and essentially ready for business. And about a week after we won, customers started to come. And I think the most amazing story we've heard was from our second customer. It was basically a single mom. She was also a farmer. She had a family to feed, and she harvested her rice, but because something went wrong with her harvest and it was too wet. It was way too wet for her to make any money. And we're talking about people who live day to day. So there's only 2 harvests a year. So that's 6 months of her income, and she basically couldn't sell it. But because it just so happened we had the dryer, she dried all her rice, and it didn't matter what quality or variety of rice she grew, but she was able to sell it then. And so it literally saved her and her family, gave them 6 months more of income. And when we went then and we saw it, we were just like, wow, like if that's not like the most, like if you talk about impact, that's like direct impact, and you could see it, like she was there. And yeah, I think so far that's like one of the most amazing stories that our team has ever encountered.
Wow, that is a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, Vanny, what school were you associated with when you submitted your application to the Hult Prize?
So we are all from University College London, the UCL, and we are all based in the UK. Yeah. Now,
you all have broad international backgrounds. Maybe each of you would just take a second and tell me where you're from and where you've lived for extended periods of time in addition to where you were born. Lincoln, let's start with you.
Okay, so I was born in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. But as I grew up, I also studied in Singapore during college, and then I went to the UK for university.
Excellent. Kisum, what about you?
So I'm born in Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong, but I grew up half my life in Sri Lanka and the other half in Vietnam.
Vanny, you?
I'm a little bit more boring as compared to the two guys. I'm born and raised in Malaysia, and I just currently moved to London 2 years ago for my undergraduate studies.
Yeah. And what about Julia, the other member of the team?
She grew up in Laos, and has a lot of has a quite international background as well.
Yeah.
She lived in a lot of like countries for an extended amount of time, like the British, the France, like China, they're like Thailand as well, right?
It's very
like
well traveled.
very
Yeah. That's great. Well, how do you think this international perspective helped you win the prize, Kisum?
I think it's really interesting because even though we're all visibly East Asian, even there are tiny nuances of like the backgrounds. Like as we mentioned, for example, I was more exposed to quite an international expat environment growing up in Vietnam and Sri Lanka, whereas Lincoln has like a completely different perspective, as well as Vanny. And that being said, it really gave us a very broad understanding on like the different environments that and the different state. I guess it contributed in us being able to see like the whole picture of whatever problem that we were trying to solve in Asia. So for the rice industry, whether it's in talking to the farmers who are lower socioeconomic backgrounds, or basically any stakeholders, it made us much more easily to relate to all of them because of our diverse backgrounds.
Sure, sure. Well, Vanny, what do you think is the most important lesson you learned about winning the Hult Prize? What was the key to success?
I think that being able to adapt and be flexible is definitely one of the key. The reason being us having to pivot, like when we found out that our initial solar bubble wasn't the best suited technology for the farmers in Myanmar, and we also had to pivot several times during our accelerator in terms of maneuvering or slightly amending our business model. And that I feel like that's one of the very important traits as an entrepreneur, because like things just get thrown to you like unexpectedly, and then you just have to react at the best interest to overcome all those like difficulties and challenges. Yeah.
Building on that though, I just want to say because sometimes all of that action, being an entrepreneur, solving the business problem that you're experiencing, your business, you can get quite narrow-sighted. I feel like throughout the whole journey, we've been super grateful to have a lot of external mentors by our side, and getting those external perspectives on our business, on our decision making, that has helped us be more grounded and clear-sighted. Excellent.
Well, Lincoln, I wonder if you would just take a minute and explain something here. You are all fabulously successful. Just the opportunity to go get the education you're getting at the University of, what is it, Cambridge, London? No.
University College London.
College London, yeah, sorry. Oh. So, I mean, you're getting this extraordinary education. None of you are ever going to be hungry again. You will never have to worry about where food comes from. You will worry about a whole host of high-class problems for the rest of your lives. Which cars to buy, where to send your kids to school, et cetera, et cetera. Why did you feel compelled to work on solving problems for people who are not so fortunate?
Well, I guess it's because there is some sort of personal connection for all of us. Not just to do with rice, but this sort of feeling of being able to help others who are less fortunate than us. Because, like you mentioned, all of us have the opportunity to worry about like first world problems. But it wasn't, if you just backtrack several generations ago, it wasn't that simple for our parents or our grandparents. And sometimes growing up in Asia, you hear a lot about the culture that's been passed down to you and your heritage. And there's this sense that, for something as simple as rice, that it's around us every day. And the very people who are growing it are the ones left behind by our societies. And I think all of us, we can kind of agree that if we have a chance to help the very people that have sort of supported our entire, like the entire Asian society is basically powered by, has to eat, and the main source of food is rice. If we have a chance to help these very people who are literally powering our society, why not? Because it's about giving them a choice. Like, we have the opportunity to choose to help people, but sometimes for the underprivileged, I think I read an article recently that said that the hardest thing about being poor is that you can't make a mistake. You don't have the privilege of being able to fail. And so I think that there's some sort of deep personal rooted sense for us to give back for the opportunities that we have got that helped us get this far in life. It's only fair to do so.
Excellent. Well, Vanny, what is your superpower?
What's my superpower?
She has so many.
Personally, to the team, I feel like I have the organization superpower of keeping everything, like, I'm like super detail oriented as well. So I write everything down from like A to Z without missing a single word. So like, I make sure everyone like gets the detail right. Yeah.
If she's missing, just to give you some context, she's so detail orientated that in her personal finances, if she's missing 1 cent or 1 penny here, she will spend days finding where that 1 penny went.
Yeah, and
which is
it
really
makes
good
sense
as
for
a
me.
CFO. Yeah.
It's good. Kisum, what's your superpower?
It's my superpower. I feel like I've always been the guy who's sort of good at everything, and one of those things was actually graphic design and marketing and really understanding what people perceive and how they perceive it. So I got a massive opportunity to really develop all of those technical skills that come with that area of work. So whether that's designing pitch decks over and over and over again, or whether it's posters, the website, video footage, I guess it's just that.
Fantastic. Lincoln, what about you? What's your superpower?
I think it's telepathic persuasion. So ever since I was young, I could sort of see certain hidden cues and make connections in my brain without really trying to. And that helped me persuade people. You can ask the team. They always think I'm kidding, but like, I'm known for like waking up and say like, hey guys, you want to go to Myanmar tomorrow? Hey guys, you want to join the Hult Prize? You want to do this? You want to do that? And somehow I always manage to get them to agree when the first thing they would think is, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Well, Vanny, Kisum, Lincoln, thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. We're just thrilled to have you and to hear your story. Congratulations on the prize. Before you go, maybe Vanny, you could just take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about Rice Inc.
Sure. So you can learn more about Rice Inc. on our social media platforms, namely LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So you can find us on our social media handles, The Rice Inc., spelled THERICEINC. And yes.
Very good. Well, thank you all. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and we wish you every success in helping to feed the world.
Thank you so much for having us, Devin.
Thank you.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Thank you for listening. Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devin's mission by visiting helpdevin.org right now.